Radio 3, it's 7:30 and time for Drama on 3, an evening with Angela Carter.
You're back from school for the Christmas holidays, picked up from Condicote Station and on your way home when you stop off to buy muffins from Bob the baker. A little old man you met on the train has asked you to give a message to a woman standing outside Bob the baker's. That little old man seemed to know that you would want muffins. And there she is. That's the woman, wearing a ring set with garnets. You are to say, "The wolves are running." And she just nods and slips away through the crowd. You don't know who she is or what it means. But this is how John Masefield's fantastic novel, The Box of Delights, begins, with its cast list of piratical rats and time-travelling Renaissance philosophers, its ineffable atmosphere of snow and mystery. Born in 1940, I was a child of the radio age, although then we still called it the wireless. I was weaned on Children's Hour, and one of the most potent memories of my childhood is that of a serial, often repeated around Christmas, of The Box of Delights. In an unself-conscious way, it used all the resources of the radio to create what we now call magic realism. Perhaps that long-ago Children's Hour serial influenced me far more profoundly than I'd like to admit. Radio always leaves that magical and enigmatic margin, that space of the invisible, which must be filled by the imagination of the listener. It is this necessary open-endedness of the medium that gives radio storytelling its extra dimension. The way the listener is invited into the narrative to contribute his or her own way of seeing the voices and sounds, the invisible beings and events. This is the space that, above all, interests and enchants me. I started writing for radio myself because of a sound effect. I made it quite by accident, sitting in my room, pencil in hand, staring vacantly into space, instead of getting on with whatever it was I was supposed to be doing. I ran the pencil idly along the top of the radiator. It made a metallic, almost musical rattle. It was just the noise that a long, pointed fingernail might make if it were run along the bars of a birdcage. Now, I thought, what kind of person might have such fingernails? Why, a vampire, famed for their long, sharp fingernails, all the better to eviscerate you with, my dear. Now, what kind of vampire would have both long, elegant fingernails and an elegant, gilt birdcage? A lady vampire, perhaps. I alliterated her. A lovely lady vampire. And she must be plucking at the bars of her birdcage because, like me, she was bored. Bored, though with what? With the endless deaths and resurrections to which she was doomed, the sleeping beauty who wakes only to eat and sleep again. And the bird in that gilded cage might be an image of the lady herself, caged as she was by hereditary appetites that she found both compulsive and loathsome.
Can a bird sing only the song it knows?
All the time I was writing the script of Vampirella, I never thought of any other medium but radio. It came to me with all its images ready formed in terms of words and sounds.
Can a bird sing only the song it knows? Or can it learn a new song?
Said the lovely, lonely lady vampire. running the elegant scalpel of her fingernail along the bars of the cage in which her pet bird sang.
Vampirella by Angela Carter.
My demented and atrocious ancestors habitually sequestered themselves from the light of the sun in solemn, indeed lugubrious, heavily curtained apartments. Each one, man or woman, was a victim of the most terrible passion. Scarcely dare to speak its name. Even the meanest fiend in hell shuns the company of my kind. I am compelled to the repetition of their crimes. That is my life. I exist only as a compulsion. A compulsion.
In Hungary, in the country of Temesvar, those who fall sick of the fatal lethargy that follows my embraces say that a white spectre follows them, sticking as close to their heels as does a shadow. They track down the dreaded vampire by means of the following ritual. They choose a young boy who is a pure maiden, that is to say, who has not yet known any woman, and set him bareback on a stallion that has not mounted its first mare. The power of these two virgins exists, you understand, only in containment. Like me, like she, they possess the mysterious solitude of ambiguous states. They are not linked into the great train of generations. We are all unnatural. Horse and rider trot towards the village cemetery and go in and out among the gravestones while the peasantry follow with spades and scythes and crucifixes and wreaths of garlic. Breathlessly, they creep a little way behind the emissaries of virginity until...
See, he stopped. He won't budge an inch. Here, in this grave, beneath this stone, the vampire lies.
There the quarry lies, as ruddy in the cheeks as if I had nodded off to sleep in my shroud. I might have been taking a little after-dinner nap, replete, pacific. The priest takes up a heavy sword. They strike off my head, and out gush warm torrents of rich red blood like melted roses.
The land is freed from the plague of vampires!
Endlessly I attend my own obsequies. Softly, enormously, across all my funerals, my fatal shadow rises again.
But love, true love, could free me from this treadmill, this dreadful wheel of destiny.
Oh, my little girl. I'd love to see you lie quiet. My daughter, the last of the line, through whom I now project a modest, posthumous existence, believes herself to be a version of the Flying Dutchman. That she may be made whole by human feeling. That one fine day a young virgin will ride up to the castle door and restore her to humanity with a kiss from his pure, pale lips.
Night and silence. A bicycle is a solitary instrument. To ride a bicycle involves a continuous effort of will, and hence it is a moral exercise. I never guessed here in the Carpathians there would be no stars. No stars, no moon. I am just a little nervous, although no one is here. Is it only the simple twanging of my own nerves that I feel? Yet I am not a timorous man. My colonel assures me I have nerves of steel.
Nothing but a nightbird.
The cry of a nightbird momentarily startled me so that I nearly fell. To To ride a bicycle is in itself some protection against superstitious fears, since the bicycle is the product of pure reason applied to motion. Yet, like all the products of enlightened reason, the bicycle has a faint air of eccentricity about it. On 2 wheels in the land of the vampires, a suitable furlough for a member of the English middle classes. My first choice was the Sahara, but then I thought perhaps a more peopled tour would be more fascinating. Nobody is surprised to see me. They guess at once where I come from. The coarse peasants titter a little behind their hands, le monsieur anglais, but they behave with deference. For only a man with an empire on which the sun never sets to support him would ride a bicycle through this phantom-haunted region. Ah, now we approach a rustic bridge. Something atavistic, something numinous about crossing whirling dark water by no moonlight.
And when he crossed the bridge, the phantoms came to meet him.
I do believe that now I am so frightened that when the front wheels of my bicycle jolt upon that stone, or is it the skull of a wild beast, that skull or stone I see before me in the tremulous light of my headlamp, I will go flying from my saddle and tumble headlong into the stream.
I say, gently does it. Can nobody speak English? Not one word? Oh, I say, where are you taking me?
Well, I dare say I'll find out where they're taking me soon enough. Could do with a rest. Could do with a cup of tea. Quite a nasty fall, really. Just a little shaken, I must confess. A good hot cup of tea now. My God, how English I am. It never ceases to astonish me. Why have they left my bicycle behind, though? Lying where it fell among the weeds at the side of the bridge. The dew will rust it. Ah, a light before us. We must be going towards that light. A light, a homestead in this abandoned and desolate region. Yet that light does not console me. It does not make me think of home and hearth and fireside. It is a sinister and flickering light, like marsh fire. By God, a castle! And flambeaux at the gates, great whirling bouquets of gas darting hither and thither on the wind.
A vast, ruined castle, from whose tall black windows came no ray of light, and whose broken battlements showed a jagged line, like broken teeth.
Right.
And at my gate, I light the visitor a welcome, with fire flowers plucked from hell.
The gatekeeper, a horn lantern in his horny fist, lighting up constellations of cobwebs. Dear God, I never heard any portal close behind me with such an emphatic clang. How I'm shivering in these wet clothes. Good evening. Must be the concierge's private quarters. Quite clean, quite comfortable. Bit Spartan. Guns on the walls. No speak English, eh? Well, I dare say we'll get on well enough. Ah, a change of clothes. Ready laid out as if they were expecting me. Why, just my size. A nice piece of worsted, this suit. And a fine silk shirt, monogrammed upon the breast. Oh, a Cyrillic delta, indeed. That's better. Clean, dry clothes. And judging by the gatekeeper's manoeuvres with that bottle, that glass, I should imagine I'm about to be treated to a little peasant hospitality. Thanks. Some kind of vodka, very strong, warming.
I'd certainly not say no to another. Now, what are you up to? Getting me some black bread, is it? Black bread and cheese. I could do with a bite, I must say. I suppose I'll be lodging here for the night. There's only one bed. Perhaps I'll doss down on the floor with the dog. Hey, boy.
Down, boy, down.
Backing away from me now. Oh, come, the English have a traditional affinity for dogs. Oh, but not, perhaps, for such dogs as you great slavering fanged monster. Yes, wild dog indeed.
Red-eyed devil's whelp. Many a witless ancient died a ghastly death at the hands of the Inquisition for petting in her bosom such a familiar as you. If you are a good dog, and don't bite the carpet or foul the floor, my daughter will throw you a juicy bone, a femur with some scraps of flesh still on it, perhaps.
What have we here? What apparition in black velvet? A valet by his obsequiousness. The Châtelain's valet? He's gesturing towards me. Why, he's dumb.
Oh, taking me off somewhere, are you? Off to meet the king of the castle? Oh, no need to clasp my wrist so tight. I'll come quietly.
Yes, go quietly.
Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Oh, it's only my pokey Scots humour that preserves my sanity.
I am the lady of the castle. My name is exile. My name is anguish. My name is longing. Far from the world on the windy crests of the mountain, I am kept in absolute seclusion. My time passes in an endless reverie, a perpetual swooning. I am both the sleeping beauty and the enchanted castle. The princess drowses in the castle of her flesh.
Hush, hush, my dearie, don't distress yourself.
Cold. So cold, Mrs. Bean. The wind creeps in through the cracks in the old stone and the fire never warms me.
Now, you just stop feeling sorry for yourself and eat up your egg. Look, I've cut up your bread and butter into soldiers for you.
Shall I eat up the nice soldiers?
Like a good girl now. Oh, your hands are like ice.
Since a child, so cold. Always cold. I should like to go to a land of perpetual summer and let the petals of a flowering tree fall upon my face as I lie in the warm shade and sleep without the fever of this eternal shivering. But could even Italian summers warm me, when not all the fires of hell might do so?
Countess, now, you just stop your whining.
Shunned by fiends.
Does my beautiful daughter sense her father's posthumous presence? Or is she indeed a portion of myself?
Good evening.
In the dark, luxurious room, I make out two figures beside the little fire. A craggy dame with pepper and salt hair dragged back in an austere bun, upright as a standing stone, and a young lady, seated.
Good evening to you. May I present you to the countess?
Welcome. Welcome to my castle. It is so lovely to see a new face. I rarely receive visitors, and nothing, I assure you, animates me half so much as the presence of a stranger. The castle is so lonely. Only the people from the village come here to bring milk and eggs and a little fresh meat. Sometimes they bring me a benighted traveller if they should have happened to have stumbled across one.
Well,
my castle is famed for its hospitality. You must forgive the shadows. My eyes, an affliction of the eyes. I can only see clearly in chiaroscuro, a condition my family shares with the cat.
At first, in the heavily shaded lamplight, I can hardly make out her features, only her vague shape as it moves a little backwards, a little forwards, in a bent wood rocking chair. inexorably as the pendulum of a giant clock. She wears a white muslin dress. She looks like a trapped cloud. But as I grow accustomed to the lack of illumination, I distinguish the shocking harmonies of her face. The young countess is so beautiful that she might just as well be hunchbacked. Her beauty is so excessive, it seems like a kind of deformity.
Her beauty is a symptom of her disorder.
There is about her not one of those touching little imperfections that reconcile us to the imperfection of the human condition.
She is a masterpiece of appearance. She's far too fine an imitation of a woman.
Her visible inhumanity does not inspire confidence. I have been quite unable to rid myself of the terrible unease that has possessed me since night fell on the Carpathians, and in her lyrical and melancholy presence I feel it increase to an almost unbearable degree. Too many shadows in the room might conspire to hide she lacks a shadow. Her hair falls down inconsolably as rain.
She would like very much to be human, but of course, that's quite impossible.
She is so beautiful. She is pitiful. Her stern tartan governess has a mouth like a steel trap.
My name is Mrs. Bean. Widowed early in life in the most distressing circumstances. Left to fend for myself in the wide world, with only my 5 wits and moral fibre to aid me. I answered an advertisement in the Edinburgh Gazette for a governess to a young lady of aristocratic birth in a far corner of the Carpathians. They offered an unusually high salary, but my attention was particularly attracted by the fact that they offered to pay only the one-way fare. That is, the fare out. My interview took place one winter's evening in the drawing room of a luxurious suite at a sumptuous but discreet hotel. Someone I took to be the Count's personal valet, a deaf mute in a livery of the most funereal black, ushered me into his presence. Only a little lamp glowed on a corner table, yet in order to shield his oversensitive eyes from even those few rays it emitted, the Count had donned a green eyeshade. I was to learn that darkness was the exclusive element of this most unfortunate family. How pale his face was, livid I should say, yet perfect gentleman. He offered me a chair, he treated me with extraordinary politeness. After a few preliminary inquiries, he asked me, did I know the Carpathians well? I answered with circumspection. I understand the air is clement, and the mountains generally unfrequented.
Dark, scarcely tenanted forests. A peasantry rooted, rotted deep in the most degrading superstition. Vile practices as old as the human race. Older. In those rank villages, the devil himself dances in the graveyards on Walpurgisnacht, a bald mountain, a castle half in ruins.
Had I, he asks, rather than an attraction for his phantom-haunted homeland, perhaps, instead, personal reasons for choosing to exile myself so far away from Scotland? I thought then, whoa, he must read the newspapers. Maybe he knows more about me than I well ken. Well, sir, I must reluctantly confess that I do have personal reasons of the most pressing nature for wishing to leave Scotland at the first opportunity, and destination, you might say. No object.
My daughter, your charge will not grow up to be as other women. Already, by an exquisite irony, she shows signs of unusual beauty, and yet her soul is already darkened by the knowledge of her fate. She is the last bud of a great tree of darkness, the final child of the oldest, most deeply cursed line in all the fatal Balkans. Blood, blood, blood is her patrimony, Mrs. Bean. Father to son, mother to daughter, endlessly the taint leaks back in time, the silver bullet, the stake through the heart. Oh!
Oh!
Not one of my house has lain quiet since Vlad the Impaler first feasted on corpses.
There's a little taint to every clan, sir. Nobody's perfect. To tell the truth, I guessed there was a snag to the position you have vacant, and that's the truth. Such a high salary. And a one-way ticket promised, only the one way. I'd not have answered it had I not been desperate. You see, my husband
was recently executed. His crime...
I'd never a notion to the nature of his tastes, married so young as I was. He's so cold to me. Then that dreadful night, when he came back from the graveyard with his fingernails full of earth and a bloated look about him. Blood will out, he said, and laughed like a hyena, aptly enough.
Necrophagy.
Blood will out. The black blood of Sawney Bean, who strewed the beaches outside Edinburgh with dead men's bones.
Times was hard. Sheep dying in the field for drought. The landlords grasping, bleeding us white with taxes. Corn took blight and rotted in the fields. The plague came, and hunger, worse than plague. We poor folk dying for lack of a crust. Ditches crammed with the corpses of the poor. So I says to my Jeannie, the outlaws' life's for us. And she says, aye, Sonny, let's eat them up the way they've eaten us. The curse of the beans. The most insatiable hunger in the world.
And so I came to take service with the Count, since I was not unfamiliar with the nature of the family's passions. Oh, you'd never believe what a pretty wee thing she was, so trusting. How she would cling to me and beg to go out into the garden.
Just this once, Mrs. Bean. Just this once before sunset.
Wait till the dark, my pet, and then we'll venture out together, just a wee way. Look, I've cut up your bread and butter into soldiers for you.
Shall I eat up the nice soldiers?
Her condition seemed to me judgment passed on her long ago, before she was born. My poor pretty dear. Oh, my poor pretty.
I am condemned to solitude and dark. I do not mean to hurt you. I do not want to cause you pain. But I am both beauty and the beast. Locked up in the fleshly castle of exile and anguish, I cannot help but seek to assuage you in my melancholy.
A magnificent apartment, dark tapestries on the walls, a subdued glitter of gold in the ormolu furniture, a heavy scent of incense, like a church, or like a mortician's parlour, for there is something corpse-like about her stillness, as if she were tranced. Her chair moves backwards and forwards, but for herself, she hardly moves at all. Velvet curtains heavily shut out the night. In her white muslin dress with the paisley shawl drawn across her frail shoulders and her long dark hair in gentle disorder.
Such a fine throat, Mrs. Bean, like a column of marble.
Hush, hush, child, calm yourself.
My ancestors suffered very much from the direct rays of the sun, and all lived all their lives in these solemn apartments, shaded from the daylight. So many centuries since one of my family saw the sunshine. I've never seen the sunshine, though when I was little I wanted to. Now I cannot even imagine what sunshine might be like. When I try to do so, I see only a kind of irradiated dark.
On her knee, a fluffy kitten, and on the little table beside her, a jewelled cage.
I ordered my daughter a jewelled bird cage from Fabergé in Petersburg for a present on her 15th birthday. But when she saw it, she made those signs with her mouth that show how she would like to cry, if only she knew the way.
In the cage, a pretty bird.
It's a songbird. Its element is mourning. But since I've kept it so long in my room, I think it must have grown blind because we keep the curtains drawn all day.
Can a bird sing only the song it knows, or can it learn a new song?
You must not give way to self-pity. You are the way you are, a necessary creature of nature, and that's an end to it.
My destination chose me before I was born. I exist only as a compulsion to repeat it.
A chignoned priest of the Orthodox faith staked me at a certain Slavonic crossroad in the year 1905. So end all the line of fled the impaler.
Have you come far today, young man?
From the village in the valley. I fear I can't pronounce it. How unexpected, how splendid to be amongst English speakers once again. I so much wanted to give the peasants a message about my bicycle, but they couldn't make head or tail of what I was saying, of course.
Please sit down. There, in that deep armchair beside the fire. Be cozy, please. Tea? You're just in time for tea.
Tea? Yes, milk and sugar, 2 lumps. Thank you. A fine silver service. A kettle on a spirit lamp and cups of such fine china her fingernails tap out carillons as she performs the tea ceremony. She is trying to allay my suspicions. She has put on such an innocent look.
Will you take a little shortbread? Mrs. Bean, my governess, makes it for me herself.
Shortbread, delicious. Delicious. So here I am, with a cup of tea in my hand, good, strong Indian tea brewed in a silver teapot, not one of those blasted samovars, and in my hand a piece of homemade shortbread. After the Gothic terrors of the early evening, now I find myself taking tea in a cunning imitation of an Edinburgh drawing room at 5 o'clock on a November evening. Ah, how snug. And yet, the angel of inquietude stirs her uneasy wings in every corner, and I cannot in the least subdue a trembling in my hands. When the tapestry figures shiver in the draught and seem out of the corner of my eye to perform a weird dance, the hairs on my nape helplessly rise, and when she bites her shortbread biscuit, I see how curiously pointed her teeth are, like the teeth of those Melanesians or Micronesians or Polynesian islanders who file their canines to a fine point. Her teeth are too white, too delicate for human teeth. What little there is in the room shines through her too white, too delicate fingers. What long, what pointed nails. How I'm shaking. Unease. Disquiet. Fear? Yes. Fear. But not yet. Quite terrified.
Oh, Puss. What an unexpected honour for you. Puss scarcely ever takes to strangers.
Pretty pussy. Pretty pussy.
I have 2 pets, my cat and my bird, and Mrs. Bean takes care of me. But most of the time, I sleep. I sleep during the daytime. You've just caught me as I wake up. Usually I wake about nightfall.
Oh.
That's the dawn for me. We have an affliction of the eyes in my family. The eyes are inverted, you understand, and so we see best at night. I have an affinity for the cat, for all night creatures. Owls, beasts that hunt by night.
Ah, Puss, I see you like having your ears tickled. Naughty pussy. Like a great white bird, the girl swoops upon me. She, the countess, you white night bird, you white butcher bird, spreading your wings, your muslin sails. She sweeps across the room to fall at my feet, pressing that delicate, wet mouth to the juicy wound with such helpless greed.
Naughty, naughty.
I feel the needles of her cannibal's teeth. I feel the suction of her tongue.
Countess, oh, but you are a naughty wee thing. The poor pretty dear, she can't help it any more than the kitten could help it. I've grown used to it. At first, I could hardly bear it. Those night walks in the woods, she'd bound off and come back in a little while with blood on her dress, making those faces she makes when she wants to cry, but she can't. Poor wee thing.
She drinks as deeply as she can. Her face is contorted with avidity. Only now, clenched like a leech to my wrist, does she seem truly alive, truly present. She has come back from wherever it is she goes and briefly possesses herself. Now I know where the fear which inhabits these mountains makes its home. Here, in this perfumed boudoir, lodged in the frail flesh of this beautiful young girl. She drinks as deeply as she may, then, fainting, slips onto the carpet. Lapsed into such torpor, the Scotswoman can hitch her in her arms as lightly as if the countess were made all of rags.
Oh, there, my dear. There, my precious.
And I, dizzy, sick, can do nothing but clasp my scratched hand protectively with the whole one and gaze at the governess with wide eyes of wonder.
It's her passion. Such has been the dreadful passion of her house since Vlad the Impaler founded the line. Now she will sleep a little. She'll return to her almost habitual trance. The valet will show you to your room.
My bicycle?
Oh, you'll not be needing that. I fear you'll never leave the castle, young man. We'll send home to your folks that you met with an accident somewhere in the Carpathians. We've got it down to a fine art now, providing for her tastes, covering up the traces. Over and over again we've done it. Over and over. Now you must rest in your room. I shall not wish you sweet dreams. When she feels the need, she'll come to you.
The mute in Mute's apparel winds me on the little spool of light he carries in his hand through corridors as circuitous as the passages inside the ear. His flame flushes out demented eyes from family portraits along the galleries, monsters all. Underfoot, worn carpets ripple in the draught. A winding staircase of worm-eaten oak. I have been here before. In dreams. In nightmares.
There is no end to the ceaseless cortege of my hospitality.
Securely locked in, eh? Pleasant room, good feather bed, a fine candelabra to light my hours of waiting, and a handsome portrait of Gilles de Rais over the fireplace, if you please. The whole damn clan related to every vampire that ever lived. Well, here's a to-do. I shall have to call on all my sang-froid to deal with the situation. A species of trance, of course. Interesting medical condition. I wonder what the sawbones back in London would make of it. Hematodipsia, the pathological thirst for blood. An exceedingly rare complaint. Now, where did I read about hematodipsia? And a touch of nervous hysteria, too. The young girl's disease. I wonder if the family finances could run to a trip to Vienna, to those Jewish doctors who stretch you out on a couch and let you tell them how you always wanted to murder your father. Wonder what the governess thinks she's up to. Feudal loyalty, I suppose. Stick to the line of Vlad the Impaler through thick and thin, no matter what. Even do the countess's pimping for her, in spite of her Edinburgh rectitude. Seen queerer things on the northwest frontier, and that's the truth. All the same. It's a pretty pickle. Yet what a lovely creature. Poor, reclusive girl with her weak eyes, and so beautiful. And round about midnight, pale as water, stooping a little beneath her burden of old guilts, the beautiful somnambulist will turn the key in the door and come into my room on suave, silent feet. She will lay me down upon that narrow bed and feast upon me. When I think of that, my shudder is not precisely one of pure terror, although the rational bicycle rider at war with the pulsing virginal romantic in my heart tells me I must, in my dealings with this lady, beware above all else of masochism.
Mrs. Bean.
Just you lie quiet a while.
Mrs. Bean. His kisses. His embraces. His head will fall back, his eyes roll, stark and dead. Poor bicyclist. He has paid the price of a night with the countess, and some think it too high a fee, while some do not.
I will say this. We shall have to get the kitten put down. My, oh my, pussy, you really gave the game away, didn't you now? Too soon, too soon. She can't resist it for one moment.
The sight of blood produces a singular effect on the metabolism of we unfortunates. Then, only then, do we wake from from the curious kind of waking swoon that passes for consciousness amongst us. We seize upon the wound and worry it with our pointed teeth until the liquid life flows down our rabid gullets in torrents, floods. Drained, empty as a crushed grape, the victim drops to the floor. The wineskin of his body has been emptied, and we are fat and drunk upon his life.
Sometimes death comes in an erotic disguise. She is your bride. She will sheathe you in lilies. I am the darkness and solitude from which you come, to which you will go.
She stirs.
How handsome he is. How the little pulse in his white throat throbs. First I was content with rabbits or lambs. Then one night, walking in the churchyard, my very sensitive nostrils twitched to sniff the fragrance of a new grave.
Rising from her catafalque, the countess wraps her negligee about her. So delicate and damned, poor wee thing. Quite damned. Yet I do believe she scarcely knows what she's doing. Hell's her destination. All roads lead her there. So off you go, my pet, and play.
One by one, I shall blow out the candles for her.
The little flames flicker, and one by one go out.
The clock whirs.
Midnight strikes. Only the last little candle left alight, now bending, dimming, yet still not extinguished. I do think Milady comes.
A waft of cold air, like a blast from a freshly opened grave, comes into the room with her. She brings this cold wind in her hair, her garments.
The final little flame is reflected in those woundable eyes, shows them rolled upwards, fixed. She does not see the light. I think that now she sees nothing. But her nostrils faintly quiver, so beautiful, so touching in her blood-stained negligee of very rare, precious lace.
She smells the blood of an Englishman again. Her wee nose goes twitch, twitch, twitch.
Into the world she slipped, through one of the interstices between reality and imagination, the last little twiglet of that genealogical upas tree that sprang from the loins of Vlad the Impaler and cast its poison shade over the Balkans for an entire millennium. Even the vilest fiends in hell shun the company of the vampire.
Who is dead yet not dead, whose bane is an insatiable thirst for life and yet an inability to live.
Grinning, she lunges towards me.
Claws and teeth sharpened on several centuries of corpses. Sick him, girl. Sick him.
I swiftly sidestep her embrace and catch her by her slender wrist. How we struggle. Her strength is more than human, but at last I fling her upon my narrow bed and slap her face once on each cheek, the remedy for hysteria, although it goes against the grain to strike a woman.
What? Strike her! Raise your hand to my daughter, to the heiress of the regions of ultimate darkness!
The shock does indeed break her trance. Her shoulders quake slowly. Slowly she raises her head and turns those eyes, the shape of tears laid on their sides, towards me. Her features twist. Although her eyes are shaped like tears, she cannot weep. Nevertheless, she continues to try to do so. Perhaps her whole life has been a balked attempt at crying.
I am not a demon, for a demon is incorporeal, nor a phantom, for phantoms are intangible. I have a shape. It is my own shape, but I am not alive, and so I cannot die. I need your life to sustain this physical show, myself. Please, give it to me.
Her rich lips part. She smiles. She raises herself. She beckons. I feel myself seized by the most powerful erotic attraction. Only the exercise of iron self-control prevents me from throwing myself at her little feet. Yet I, who love the bicycle and the light of common day, cannot, in the final analysis, bring myself to partake in this grisly charade. My reason forbids it.
My life depends on yours. I am a woman, young and beautiful. Come to me.
And so she folds herself on the bed with the lace falling about her softly. She stretches out her white arms to me, her long hands with those fingernails like mandolin picks.
Please.
I bless the cold showers of my celibacy.
Countess, keep your talons to yourself.
What? What?
When I first saw you tonight, I thought you were an infinitely pitiable creature because of your beauty and your loneliness.
Curious. Now she seems to wake. Her eyes clear, they settle upon him. How pure and pale his lips are. Lips that have never... Oh. Never. How can it be?
My father loved me and brought Mrs. Bean over the sea from Scotland to look after me. He taught me how to suck the blood from the young rabbits and crunch so deliciously their little bones as we crouched in the moist undergrowth of the thickets by the churchyard. But I grew up, and then I was not satisfied with the rabbits and the baby lambs and the little calves still wobbling on their newborn legs. No, now I must have men, and so they come but never go. All dead. All dead.
When I hold her wrists together to keep her murderous hands away from me, she makes her weeping face and writhes a little, for she is thwarted. Poor, spoiled child.
I am a creature of the night only. I belong to the night.
One thin, wandering hand muzzles the ribbons of her negligee. She slips succinctly from the garment and relapses upon the coverlet in the most alluring abandon. In my head, I hear all the string orchestras of seduction playing at once together. So she voluptuously invites me to step into Juliet's tomb. And I was foolish enough in my rationality to set out upon a bicycle tour of the Carpathians with none of the traditional impedimenta of the vampire hunter about me. No wreath of garlic, no silver bullet, but only the conviction this is a poor, sick girl maintains me in the perpendicular stance of reason, when common sense tells me the best thing to do in the circumstances is to fling myself helplessly upon her. We should take you away to Vienna, where doctors could examine you. You would stretch out on the therapeutic couch, and the stern, quiet, bearded physician would tease from you, during the slow intervals of healing time, the confused origins of your sickness.
Why aren't you afraid of me? Why don't you shrink from my murderous fingers?
What can your governess be thinking of, never to have cut your nails? You fine lady with your Struwwelpeter's hands.
They cripple the feet of Chinese women as a sign of status. It is the same with me. I may not use my hands as hands. 3 inches of horn stick out at the tips, don't you see? Useless for anything but gouging.
With an infinitely touching gesture, she tucks her hands away behind her back, as though she were ashamed of them, and smiles at me, tremulously.
My daughter. Oh, my daughter. Am I losing you?
With no thought of passion, heaven forbid, only of consolation, I take her in my arms.
How warm you are. How you warm me.
I find it difficult to breathe. My little girl, don't you remember me? Don't you remember sucking the delicious bones of the baby rabbits?
I never in all my life felt warm till now.
She leans her head upon my shoulder with the most moving simplicity, and I gently stroke her disordered hair.
If I sang you my Liebestod, you would not understand it.
I never liked Wagner. Heavy, decadent stuff. Do you think you could sleep, my dear?
Choking. Airless.
She's rich enough to pay for treatment in all conscience. Oh, the poor girl. A ghastly affliction.
I feel almost a healthy sleepiness come upon me. Will you Could you give a goodnight kiss?
I am infinitely moved. Softly with my lips I touch her forehead as if I have been kissing a child goodnight.
His pure pale lips on your brow. Fall upon me all at once the consecrated sword, the pointed stake.
I always knew that love, true love, would kill me.
She feels quite limp in my arms, as if after the crisis of a fever. Soon it will be morning. The crowing of the mundane cock and first light will dissolve this gothic dream with the solvent of the natural. Yes, perhaps I shall take her to Vienna, and we shall clip off her fingernails and take her to a good dentist to deal with her fangs.
Oh, is a millennium of beastliness to expire upon a kiss?
There are some things that, even if they are true, we must not believe them.
I existed only as a symbolic formula. I was a woman, young and beautiful.
A little curl dangles over her forehead and moves with her breathing. Sweet. So sweet. Oh, I don't believe your silly tales. Just the hysteria of a young girl in this isolated place in the back of beyond with only the family portraits for company. Look, now she sleeps deeply. I could do with a spot of shut-eye myself. It's been a heavy day. When I awoke, refreshed, I found I was clasping in my arms only a white lace negligee, a little soiled with blood.
Fly away, birdie. Fly away.
Why, Mrs. Bean, you've opened up the curtains. My goodness, what a view.
Let a breath of fresh air into this mausoleum. A glorious morning. I sent a man to look after your bicycle. You'll be wanting to get on with your tour after you've had your breakfast.
Well, the countess.
I regret most bitterly you should have visited us at a time of mourning. The last of the line, you understand. They'll say mass for her in the chapel. I, myself, being a freethinker, will not attend. I'm well provided for in the will, of course. I shall return to Scotland as soon as the estate has been wound up and open a girls' finishing school, perhaps, or a boarding house. Not a mutton pie shop, you'll be glad to hear.
May I see her? In the last repose of death, she looked a little older, but not much. A good deal uglier since she had lost all her teeth, and because of her loss of allure, for the first time, fully human. I sped through the purged and rational splendours of the morning, but when I arrived at Bucharest, I learned of the assassination at Sarajevo and returned to England immediately to rejoin my regiment.
The shadow of the fatal count rises over every bloody battlefield. Everywhere I am struck down. Everywhere I celebrate my perennial resurrection.
In Vampirella, by Angela Carter, Vampirella was played by Jessica Raine, Hero by Oliver Criss, Mrs. Bean by Doon McKeekan, Sawney Bean by Kevin McMonagall, Boy by William Gidney, and The Count by Anton Lesser. It was directed by Fiona McAlpine.
I feel I ought to confess that I have not told you the whole truth about it. I was talking about radio drama in general, and Vampirella in particular, and I said that Vampirella was inspired by a sound effect. But there is another story. I was living in Bath in the early 70s, that charming, poignant, useless city, and there I met a young academic named Christopher Frayling. I used to sit at the back of his lectures, smoking a quiet fag and minding my own business. He told me about a book he was writing on the 19th century vampire. I got quite interested in this. And he was planning to visit the Carpathian Mountains for research, following in the footsteps of Jonathan Harker in Dracula. And I thought that was, well, I was rather tickled by that idea. So my naive, overeducated, young hero on a bicycle is based on Christopher. In fact, when I had written Vampirella, I made him a present of the typescript. Yeah. Now you know all. I do like sound effects, however. But of course the principal means of sustaining the radio drama illusion is language itself. It may be richer and more evocative by far than that of real life, can release itself entirely from the conventions of everyday speech, can explore all kinds of rhetorical devices and linguistic tricks in order to do the work of sustaining an imaginary world. Because of the absence of the visual image, radio drama need not necessarily be confined to the representations of things as they are. Radio drama starts off from a necessary degree of stylization. It has always attracted and continues to attract the avant-garde. It is a medium that writers love. There is also radio's capacity to render the inner voice, the subjective interpretation of the world. It is, par excellence, the medium for the depiction of madness, for the exploration of the private worlds, of the old, the alienated, the lonely. I must confess, I've been tempted to write my own play about a notable madman, and I succumbed to that temptation, as you will shortly discover. Working on the fruitful paradox that radio is the most visual of mediums, because you cannot see it, I decided to paint some pictures in radio. I have cheated because they are narrative pictures, that's to say, pictures that tell a story, but also pictures that could be construed as telling tales about the man who painted them. He was a Victorian painter of fairy subjects named Richard Dadd, whose promising career terminated in his mid-20s when something happened. And after that something, he was encouraged to continue painting, and his style changed, but unnervingly his subject matter did not. I don't know how it would have been possible for me to discuss Dadd in the way I wanted in any other medium than radio, with its ability to cross-cut from subjective to objective reality, from the apparently real to the patently imagined. Come Unto These Yellow Sands isn't a documentary, nor really a play. One might say that I am inviting you inside some of Dadd's paintings, inside his picture entitled Come Unto These Yellow Sands, and his eerie masterpiece, The Fairy Fella's Master Stroke. There is also an occasional visit to the lecture room. Do feel free to smoke. And if you approve of this effort, I'd quite like to do the same sort of thing about Jackson Pollock. Now that would be a challenge.
Come unto these yellow sands, and then take hands, curtsied when you have, and kissed the wild waves with
The late Richard Dadd. Alas, we must so preface the name of a youth of genius that promised to do honour to the world. For although the grave has not actually closed over him, he must be classed among the dead.
Come Unto These Yellow Sands by Angela Carter. An imaginative reconstruction for radio of the life and surviving paintings of Richard Dadd.
Character deposition on Richard Dadd, 1817 to 1886, from W.P. Frith, 1819 to 1909, who entered the Royal Academy schools with Dadd in 1837. Frith became famous as a panoramic painter of Victorian actuality, with canvases crowded with the minutiae of everyday life. Derby Day, Weymouth Sands, the railway station, etc., etc., etc.
Dad was my superior in all respects. He drew infinitely better than I did. In 1839, he won the painting school's second silver medal for copying in the School of Painting, the third medal in the life class. In 1840, the medal for the best drawing in the life class. Apart from his uncommon gifts as draftsman and colourist, I can truly say from a thorough knowledge of Dad's character that a nobler being and one more free from the common failings of humanity never breathed. The catastrophe was swift, sudden, virtually unheralded. It could be said that with one fatal blow he ceased to exist. And when, as we used, those of us who'd been closest to him, myself, Augustus Egg, the doubly unfortunate John Philip, went to visit poor Dad in the asylum after his incarceration.
What brings you here? Have you killed anyone?
He would angrily turn aside from his oldest friends.
Friends?
And as the years passed, such visits ceased altogether. He who had borne a nature of the noblest stamp, a mind of the most sparkling brilliance, lost to us. Lost. Amongst that lonely multitude of distracted souls, he crouched over those paintings of his madness that might best be seen with the aid of a magnifying glass, such was the minuscule scrupulosity of their details. Or playing plaintive country airs remembered from his childhood on an old fiddle somebody'd given him. When young, Dad had been very handsome, with his dark hair and his fine eyes, and such a gentle temperament, gentle as a lamb, yet full of liveliness and humour, devoted to his family, a wide circle of friends, kind, generous, talented, a paragon. So much beauty, virtue and genius at 20, as if the fairies had touched him.
Training at the Royal Academy schools of this time consisted largely of drawing from classical sculpture and casts until the student was considered proficient enough to enter the life class. The professors of painting, perspective and anatomy each gave a series of lectures every year. Turner, the professor of perspective, rarely put in an appearance at the schools and never lectured. But the professor of painting, Henry Howard, duly took up his place on the podium.
The genius of the painter, like that of the poet, may ever call forth new species of beings. An Ariel, a Caliban, or the midsummer fairies.
The poetic and sensitive Dad naturally proceeded to summon the fairies to his canvases.
Titania Sleeping, oil on canvas, 25.5 inches by 30.5 inches, exhibited at the Royal Academy in 1841.
There sleeps Titania, some time of the night, lulled in these flowers with dances and delight.
I'm pictured in a kind of grotto, a recess composed both of flowers and of the tiny bodies of my attendant fays, who are so intertwined and clothed in the cups of bluebells and the horns of bindweed that it is hard at first to tell who is the fay, who is the flower. These tiny, charming, antic creatures, scarce bigger some of them than a dewdrop, contort themselves in all manner of quaint dispositions. Some puff out their cheeks to fill the trumpets of the sweet woodbine with music for my nocturnal serenades. Others finger arpeggios upon their own noses, which have whimsically acquired the shape of clarinets. Outside my enchanted chamber, nymphs dance. The tranquil and timeless light of fairyland, the quintessential distillation of moonlight, falls on the bare shoulders of my two attendants and suffuses the white rosy-shadowed velvet with which my own succulent limbs are upholstered. My succulent yet immaterial limbs. Above my grotto, there is a kind of arch formed by an interesting monster with a great many leathern wings.
The same year, Dad exhibited a companion piece to his Titania at the Society of British Artists. Oil on canvas, 23 1/4 inches by 23 1/4 inches. Puck,
whom he painted as a plump, white, juicy child seated on a toadstool of a botanically imprecise description, with directly above my head a bindweed blossom looking not unlike a particularly vulgar satin lampshade, because it dangles a fringe of pendant dewdrops for all the world like glass beads. Around my little pedestal, which looks far too frail to support my Bacchic corpulence, dance dozens of those tiny nudes. Dozens of them. Dozens of them jiggering about with positively frenetic abandon, whirling like dervishes. And I am bathed in the coolest, purest light. The light of another world.
in the same year, Dad exhibited Fairies Assembling to Hold Their Revels, now lost, at Manchester.
Ravishingly pretty, but so much, so very much prettiness suggests the presence of far too many ugly beings gibbering away behind the painted screen where he pushed them.
Settle down, please, settle down. Emanations of the id to the back of the room. Apparitions from the unconscious and preconscious in the gallery. Pre-Christian survivals, fertility symbols, nightmares and ghouls in the pews to the right. Death signs, storm warnings to the left. Oedipal fantasies in the front row, please. And I'll thank you, poltergeists, to keep a firm hold on your impulses during the lecture. Bugs, long-legged beasties, and things that go bump in the night, it is my pleasure and privilege to present to you, summoned here from the vasty deep tonight, Oberon, king of the fairies, fallen angel, locked out of both hell and heaven, leader of the wild hunt, etc., etc., etc.
Thank you, friends. Thank you. The vogue for painting of fairy subjects during the mid-Victorian period might be regarded as the manifestation of a compensatory ideology of innocence. In the age of high capitalism, a period when the relations of man with his kind were increasingly under stress, and the art which reflected these relations became increasingly fraudulent. The primitive superstitions of the countryside, the ancient law born on the wrong side of the blanket to religious faith, could not survive in the smoke, the stench, the human degradation, the poverty, the cholera, the tuberculosis of the great cities which the Industrial Revolution had created. Here, the poor were stripped of everything, even of their irrational dreads and the external symbols of their dreams and fears. The wraiths of nightmare were utilized to provide their masters with a decorative margin of the quaint, the fanciful, and the charming, upon the printed pages of lives that had no imaginative richness of their own. The richly sexual symbolism of aspects of the mythology of the wee folk was buried so deeply beneath the muffling layers of repression and the oppression of women that the fairies were often depicted on these canvases in states of virtually complete undress, of active nudity. At a period when formal art treated the nude with kid gloves, in the passive mood. This realm of fictive fairy served as a kitschified repository for fancies too savage, too dark, too voluptuous. Fancies that were forbidden in the light of common Victorian day as such. The enchanting light that bathes these whimsical canvases falsifies not only experience, but imagination itself. Imagination severed from reality festers. The beautiful thought in a world of pain is itself a crime.
In July of the year 1842, Richard Dadd set out on a grand tour of the historic and picturesque ruins of the Middle East as the companion of Sir Thomas Phillips, a former mayor of Newport, Monmouthshire. Phillips, a solicitor, had been knighted for the part he played in putting down the Chartists. Phillips hired Dadd as an artist to make him an album of watercolour drawings as a souvenir of the trip. The last picture Dadd painted before he set sail with his patron was titled, "Come unto these yellow sands, a wild saraband on a deserted beach at evening."
Whirling like dervishes, like dervishes.
The grand chain of dancers partially conceal their nakedness with swathes of chiffon that drifts to reveal nipples, muscles, sinews that, since they belong to the fairy folk, may be depicted in all the forbidden splendour of authentic flesh, because the fairies do not exist. The pleasures of the flesh rendered insubstantial as dream. The rising moon applies a coat of mother of pearl to the ambiguously sexed beings. Half the eldritch company float in a great curlicue upon the air, immune to gravity, while the leaders of the dance pass through an arch of rock, as though through the eye of a needle. The waves break upon the barren shore.
All went splendidly at first. After we had done Europe most comprehensively, I was an indefatigable tourist, I assure you, we left Greece to sail for Smyrna, and once landed, set out in a caravan across landscapes of most savage splendour. The untamed wilderness spread out for our delight like a glorious picture book.
We would stop at some wild, uninhabited place, always in the open, under the stars. We would put down our mattresses, have the mules unloaded. The cook would light the fire.
From Smyrna to Constantinople to Bodrum, to the great ruins at Lycia.
I, all unprepared for the stark light, the wild people, was precipitated into a landscape not dissimilar to that of the infernal regions.
To Beirut, to Damascus.
At evening, as we approached the city, the domes and minarets seemed to be embroidered on a sky of flushed satin, a scene of such ethereal loveliness that it lodged in my memory like a kind of grace, amongst much that I found strangely troubling to my spirits.
When the circumstances of our travels permitted it, I urged my young companion to sketch the picturesque and exotic spectacles of our travel.
In Damascus, walking about the maze of alleys, I came upon a camel. Poor beast, great lolloping, starveling brute, who had fallen in the street. Fallen and, I think, broken a leg. Fallen with all the baggage upon him, in a street so narrow he quite blocked the traffic. His driver, in his filthy robes, beat the beast, but it would not, could not rise. And then, oh horror, they came with axes and with knives and lopped off all its living limbs, as one might lop off the limbs of a tree, as it lay there in the intolerable heat of noon. Heat so intense it seemed all nature itself might faint with it. And the blood sprang out and flowed away down the gutters, mingling with the foul odours of the city. And still the wretched camel lived. It shrieked and writhed most fearfully, and still lived until at last they slit its throat. And then they could carry it away, piecemeal, you understand, bit by bit. And in that way, the street was cleared. Horrible. Horrible.
In November, we arrived at last in Egypt.
When we disembarked at Alexandria, although I was consumed by a scarcely tolerable anguish of despair as soon as my feet touched the ancient earth of Egypt, I also felt, at the same time, a sense of homecoming, of arriving at a destination that was my destiny. And, in its inescapable quality, this sensation was especially atrocious. The vast, pitiless, antique land welcomed me as if I was its son.
So we stopped a while in Cairo. Good beds at last, clean linen. The hospitable consul provided decent grub. My young companion browsed about the bazaar, searching out souvenirs, antiquities.
Effendi?
Good morning.
Let me display my treasures. Objects d'art, curios. Little items from the tombs of the pharaohs, such as beads of faience and cornelian, rings of jasper, faience and gold, lapis lazuli scarabs, blue as the sky, and mounted in gold, tiny figures of the gods.
Gods who ruled the sky before Christ was born.
Or perhaps one of these small rolls of papyrus, removed from the grave wrappings of the dead, inscribed with the chapters from the Kitab el-Maytum.
The Kitab Bel?
We call it the Book of the Dead.
And I saw before me messages from the beginning of time, in an inscrutable script formed of hawks and serpents, full moons and crescents, undulations as of the frozen wave.
The sky burns for you. The earth trembles for you before the birth of the god.
Fearful. Wonderful.
Hail to thee, O bull of the land of the west. I am one of those gods who cut in pieces the enemies of Osiris.
The west?
The land of the dead. Behold, Osiris!
And the very mention of the holy name, Osiris, made the hair upon my nape stand upright. A shiver of electric dread and holy expectation ran through me.
Osiris, the king of the dead, who weighs your heart, Effendi.
After so much sightseeing, I yearned for a spot of sport. I would go banging away at crocodiles along the Nile, while my young companion took himself off with his easel.
The desert starts at the gates of Cairo. The desert, mother of mirages, where the light is white as if the sand had scoured the polished metal of the sun white.
He'd blacken page after page of his sketchbook, zeal enough for a dozen artists. Such enthusiasm he'd scarcely take shelter, even during the fiercest portion of the noonday sun.
White heat that pulsed.
Scribble, as if he were making sketches enough to serve him for the rest of his lifetime.
And often, after a day's sketching, I lay down at night with my imagination so full of wild vagaries that I really and truly doubted of my own sanity.
Took the boat down to Thebes. Good shooting along the banks of the Nile. Our destination, the Sphinx. Memorable spectacle. Truly memorable.
The Sphinx, it was herself who whispered to me what Oedipus knew. I went to see her. She was crouching in the middle of the Dead Sea of Sand, attended by 3 inscrutable pyramids. I saw her lips move, but you had to listen very hard to hear what she was saying, and at first I could not believe what she told me. Her message or prophecy cast me into the pit where terror lives. I prayed to Osiris for his guidance from this most antique and therefore most authentic of deities. For the world had resolved itself around me into weird and dreadful forms.
A touch of the sun, poor Dad. Nasty touch of sunstroke. Been doing too much. Overtaxed himself. Out in the sun all day. Delirium. Babbling away about I don't know what.
A visitation of the Godhead in a beam of white light.
Oh, asked me to look into his mouth to see if there was a green feather on his tongue. And then he saw men with heads of dogs and cow-headed women in the room.
I am come to judgment. I am come to judgment. I am come to judgment.
Indeed, I was quite concerned about the poor fellow, but mercifully, a day's complete rest, a good night's sleep, and a good English breakfast of tea and toast and boiled eggs, thanks to the British consul, and he seemed as right as rain again.
Although I recovered from the ghastly hallucinations that my attack of sunstroke procured me, they left me terribly, terribly fearful that I might hearken to those voices of the messengers of death, that I might allow myself to believe in their existence.
Homeward bound, from Alexandria by ship to Malta.
And I grew afraid I might lose my reason.
A queen, and by Jove,
and I scrutinized the Book of the Dead again and again. And always my eye fell upon those symbols that the merchant had told me signified the great god aboard the divine ship.
My game again, Captain.
Under a spare sail slung amidships for a canopy, my worthy benefactor and the ship's captain play all day at cards, sipping thick tumblerfuls of cloudy arrack that turn my gut when I try to drink it. Look, he deals. He deals the devil's picture books. And I do believe that his tailcoat conceals his tail.
And it's my game again. Oh.
And as they played and poured more and more arrack, I was seized with the conviction that the stake of the game was nothing less than the sea captain's soul. The point of my pencil snapped in two. I could sketch no more that day. The world burst into fragments of ferocious light, and fire whirled about me. With expressions of the most vicious and deceitful concern, my so-called benefactor came to me where I lay, struck down on the deck.
Dad, I say!
Take your hands off me, you devil!
Come on, sir! We got him to his cabin, at last, sponged him down with cool water, left him in a dark room, and out he came at sundown, full of apologies. Delicate constitution, of course. Artistic temperament. So, we made our way to Rome, where, to my consternation, outside the Vatican...
As soon as the Pope, the Holy Father, stepped out upon the balcony, raising his hand in satanic benediction on that obscenely ululating crowd, I understood my sacred duty. I sprang forward. But the servants of the Prince of Darkness laid their hands upon me and restrained me.
When we reach Paris, I shall make quite certain that Dad sees a doctor.
Although he posed as my benefactor and a father to me, this man, this Phillips, all the time wove the ghastliest plans for the petition of my spirit that would have come to fruition in Paris had I not given the slip to this emissary of the devil to post directly home.
I must confess to you, sir, that since your son returned from the East, he's been behaving in such an odd way that I hardly like to have him visit my studio.
He's a little overtired from his travels, the exertion, his delicate nerves. And is he not painting away in his studio, after all? Has he not sent paintings to the Liverpool Academy? Is he not hard at work?
A watercolour from this period, Dead Camel, now lost, has been described as a ghastly little invention of desert horror, framed in by demons such as his distempered brain alone could devise.
Well, sir, I can tell you that during those 3 months after the poor man's return from abroad, he lodged in my house at Newman Street, London, and in and out he would go about his business scowling furiously, and sometimes suddenly grimacing and showing his teeth in such a wild, distracted way that I grew quite frightened of him. And his clothes, spotted and dirted with paint, something dreadful. But then I thought, he is an artist. He told me, did he not, never to set foot in his rooms, neither to clean them up, nor to bring him water, even for his own ablutions.
Never disturb my apartments.
He said with vehemence enough to scare you witless. For, he says,
I'm engaged in researches upon the enemies of the Almighty, and my rooms are now sanctuaries for the great god Osiris, of whom, whilst in Egypt, I was permitted to become a devotee.
Well, we have had strange ones in this house, and since he paid his rent regular, I thought no more of it. Indeed, great cases of books and curios now arrive for him that he'd purchased in Egypt. But I never set eyes on the contents of those chests till after the accident, for he unpacked them in perfect secrecy. And yes, he said we should give him nothing to eat, for according to his religion, he must prepare his own diet.
Ex over omnia. All things come from the egg. I shall eat nothing but eggs, the little emblems of eternity, round, with a germ of new life in the middle. And I shall eat eggs until I become eternal.
So that after the accident, we came to clean out his place at last, and found eggshells everywhere. Ground into the carpet, eggshells in the grate, eggshells on all the tome upon tome of lore about ancient Egypt. How I pitied his poor solitary meals. But the walls were covered with a tremendous number of drawings of his friends that he had held most dear. And all of them in these pictures had their throats cut.
Rest and quiet. He is not yet recovered from the effects of the sun. Rest, quiet, country air.
On the 28th of August, Dad called on his father and asked him to go to the country with him. Out walking in Cobham Park, Richard Dad kills his father with a spring knife he had brought with him for that purpose, under the delusion that his father was the devil and he himself the incarnation of the god Osiris. He escaped to France, where he was committed to an asylum after attempting to kill a fellow passenger in a carriage. Almost a year later, he was extradited back to England. On the 22nd of August, 1844, he was admitted to the Criminal Lunatic Department of Bethlehem Hospital. From that date, Richard Dad's experience may be termed posthumous. He was then 26 years old.
Far
Far?
away.
Far away. You don't want for recreation then? They let you have your old fiddle to make a bit of music with?
Far away from this rock and castle of seclusion.
Far away.
As his physician, I feel compelled to report that his delusion remains fixed and immovable, his conversation sometimes exceedingly unpleasant. Colours and canvases have been provided for him.
Watercolours, pastels, oils even. They let you paint your own pictures then?
He soon resumed painting, but his work suffered a sea change, as if his delusion were an ocean in which he had drowned full fathom 5, or more deeply still, drowned fathom upon unimaginable fathom, lost to us more profoundly than if he had been dead in an abyss of loss, the cruelest of all losses, the loss of reason. In this dreadful isolation, his painting took on an hallucinatory clarity. It underwent a kind of magical petrification. In these strange canvases, the rules of time and space and perspective have undergone a subtle transformation, and there is no effect of either depth or movement, as if everything had stopped still, stock fast, frozen in time at that moment that the fatal blow was struck, the crime Oedipus committed that exiled him forever from the company of those who acknowledge a distinction between inside and outside. Yet there is an almost miraculous intensification of colour, as if he no longer dipped his brush in natural pigment, but in crushed mineral substances, brighter and more shining than those used by painters who inhabit this world. And his work became enormously small, as if the fairies who invaded the most remarkable canvases of his earliest years of solitude were now directing the infinite littleness of the arabesques of the tip of his brush, as if indeed he were not painting fancies, but rather real sitters, from a perfectly material realm of concrete dream.
Contradiction, Oberon and Titania. Oil on canvas, 24 inches by 29.5 inches, painted by Dad between 1854 and 1858 for Dr. William Charles Hood, Physician Superintendent of Bethlehem Hospital.
He shaped the canvas into an oblate spheroid, like the shape of a tear laid on its side.
And he has learned some respect for the Queen of the Fairies. Now I dwarf my court. Here come I, Titania, with my gigantic stride. How big I've grown since the time he took my picture when I was sleeping in the glade. I tower over my fairy subjects like Gulliver in Lilliput. I trample them underfoot. There, I flattened her, that winged creature no bigger than my little finger who nestled in the flower bell. Fairyland buzzes with the whir of tiny wings, fays like gnats, like midges, like flies. He has lost his sense of scale.
If this enormous butterfly is as big as I, then it is twice the size of the hairy-chested, horned and bearded fairy centaur who leaps across the violets at the viewer's right, drawing upon me a bow in a fairy assassination attempt
That suggests Mr. Dad has left a little signature of murder, almost invisible, in a corner, in order to tease. Such a crowded composition. What overpopulation in fairyland. And the noise, the bustle. Huge blue trumpets of the hallucinatory morning glory roll round my feet. They have the fragile solidity of painted tin, like the horns of old gramophones. I have grown very brown, as if my skin had been burned by hotter suns than coaxed his cold kingcups and lilies of the valley out of the earth. The curving petals of these flowers have the waxen and unnatural precision of immortelles, everlasting flowers, graveyard bouquets. They cannot fade because they never grew. Flowers the yellowish white of fangs.
He has decided to give me, Oberon, the fierce, proud air of an Arab chieftain or a Kurdish brigand. No doubt he took my features from some sketch or other of his travels. Observe my eaglish beak of a nose, my fine, crisply curling black beard. And Dad has dressed me in a fringed tunic of Middle Eastern provenance and sandals of a archaic design. I clasp the arm of my pretty page. Horsemen small enough to pass through the eye of a needle ceaselessly parade behind me. The leaves of the plants are flat as palm fans. They might be made of beaten metal. Their edges look as if they could cut you. Cruel things occur diminutively in the undergrowth, which is a complicated web of metal vines in which the wee folk are trapped. No wind stirs, or ever could in this frozen grove. Time does not exist here. She and I confront one another in a durationless present.
Dew, everywhere. It hangs in lucid drops endlessly about to fall, never to fall, from feathery grasses that curl above us. Dew blisters the deathless surfaces of the leaves and flowers. Dew, like heavy glass beads, hanging on the folds of our clothes. But the dew isn't wet, it won't drench us. The dew drips like tears, but tears that are dropped from a crystal eye, heavy, solid, mineral, glittering, unnatural. And the earth under the sharp embroidery of the flowers is as hard as ship's biscuit.
Ill met by moonlight, proud Titania.
What? Jealous Oberon?
Ill met by moonlight, proud Titania.
What? Jealous
Because time does not pass in these wards of absence. Everything acquires the quality of still life. Or as the French would say, nature morte.
Yet what can you imagine lovelier than fairyland?
Somebody took Dad's photograph as he was at work upon this picture. He turns towards the camera, an immense, haunted, shaggy, bearded head. His eyes opaque, as if they had been put out by pearls.
Very charming, Mr. Dad. And now perhaps you could paint one like that just for me. A special commission from your good doctor who treats you kindly and would like to keep your mind upon the harmless fairies. Give you no time to brood upon questions of antique theology.
The picture, usually considered Dad's masterpiece, the fairy fella's master stroke, took 9 years to complete.
Oil on canvas, 21¼ inches by 15½ inches.
The texture is as thickly embossed as that of petit point. It looks as though the picture might be read with the fingertips like Braille. The composition is of the utmost complexity. Something is going on in every centimetre, and yet a frozen calm holds all the weird actors still. The picture offers a scene from a narrative just before the conclusion. It illustrates a story that has not begun and therefore cannot end. It tells an anecdote, the point of which is never made.
Oh, do we but strike the blow, master? Do we but strike the blow?
See, there's the man with the girt axe.
On a wee section of moonlit hill, an innumerable horde of beings have gathered together to witness the fairy fella, our hero, strike a nut with an axe. There are huge daisies above their heads and about their feet. Each petal of the moon-drenched daisies stands out with an hallucinated clarity, and the little flowers are white, as if made from white metal, not silver, whiter than silver, and they emit such a luminous gleam. They seem of themselves to illuminate this crowded break where the fairies come. Each grain of sand is as distinctly visible to the eye as it would be to the eye of God.
Now, I raise my trusty weapon in my good right hand. Such a troop have gathered here to see my fatal blow. You can't count them. Here we have, all gathered together, soldiers, gypsies, fiddlers in rags and tags and scarlet jackets, masons and carpenters in their aprons come here a-riding on mice. A deputation of the famous witches of Wales in their pointed hats. Queen Mab herself and all her retinue ride round the brim of the magician's hat.
Our laws of space do not apply to this picture, nor do our laws of being. None of the plentiful deformities of the swarm of fairy folk astonishes him. He knows each one and welcomes them, and each element in the picture is given the same existential weight. If each ear of corn, each spiked chestnut husk is rendered with a naturous fidelity, so are the spread, fluttering wings and brilliant garb of the crowd, some of whom are so small they are scarcely visible to the naked eye, as they glide behind a clod of earth, secrete themselves beneath a blade of grass. And their faces are full of indifference, a cruel, fierce regard, a fixed grin on all their tiny faces.
I hold my axe high in the air, and I shall bring it down upon this here hazelnut, which I propose to split in half with one stroke, and so resolve the argument.
And so resolve the war within me.
But the axe cannot fall. Nothing can move.
And here we are, stuck fast for all eternity, waiting for me to strike.
Waiting in the rock and castle of seclusion.
And he's too scared of what he did to let on he knows my secret. That the blow I am about to strike, which he prevents me from, is the very blow he struck himself.
Osiris, defend me.
Calm yourself, Mr. Dad, calm yourself. Music. Why don't you play a little?
So then he'd play the old fiddle the doctor gave him by the hour, see? All the good old tunes, such as Over the Hills and Far Away and The Devil Among the Tailors. And the music so took him out of himself that he don't even notice a poor mad girl who'd like her picture made for her. Oh, Mr. Dad, won't you paint the portrait of poor Crazy Jane?
Sketch of an idea for Crazy Jane, 1855. Watercolour.
And since there was not one of the female kind within those walls, Mr. Dad was forced to have a poor, distracted young man standing for my body. He wrapped the lad in rags with straw, feathers, and little flowers such as daisies and vines of morning glory all in my hair. And yet Mr. Dad caught a look at me to a T for all that, especially about the eyes, my tragic eyes, you might say. And from his memory, he recalled a lovely background to my plight. A ruined castle, trees, and flying across the sky, crows. Mr. Dad? Still playing your old fiddle? So hour by hour and year by year, he plays his fiddle, the songs his nursey sang him long ago, whilst around him we pace out our shuttered lives from hour to hour, time measured by meal times, by sleeps, by paroxysm.
Dad's delusion remained fixed and immovable, his behaviour unpredictable. When, in 1864, all the criminal patients of Bethlehem were sent to the newly opened asylum at Broadmoor, Dad went with them by train. There was never any possibility of his release. Yet, as long as no mention was made of those subjects to which his obsessions were sensitive, his doctors described him as a charming companion. In old age, he took on a benign appearance, with a flowing white beard. The doctors liked him, encouraged him. He painted their portraits, was even allowed to paint frescoes on the walls of their private homes.
Why, Mr. Dad, very fine. It's good to see you so busy, so absorbed. And yet, my sympathetic scrutiny can find very few clues as to the exact nature of his illness in those paintings I have seen, that are all the evidence he ever submitted to the world as to the exact state of his inner life. My Viennese colleague, who took such an interest in that kind of thing, did not set up his practice until the spring of the very year that poor Dad died. Now he might have been able to extract all manner of meaning from Dad's pictures, and yet little in them seems to me to illuminate his condition, or indeed ours. For are we not, all of us, residents in the castle of seclusion, of the anguished self? What would have impressed you most about the old boy in his latter years was what a nice old buffer he was. But nothing mad about his paintings, not at all. Not like some of that damn French stuff you see around nowadays. I suppose you could say that the old chap got on with his career as though nothing much had happened. What's that? Repression?
The icy calm of absolute repression. The striving both to justify the actions of the self and at the same time to obliterate the actions of the self.
Well, wasn't he the product of the most repressed society in the history of the world?
The tragic circumstances of Dad's life were at length terminated by consumption in Broadmoor on the 8th of January, 1886.
I am truly thankful to know him at rest. It is less grief to me than it was to think of him in the changed condition in which he has lived for many years past. His life has been to me a living death. Yours faithfully, Mary Ann Dad, sister of the unfortunate.
The quaint pornography of Never Never Land, the infection of the mystic East, as fatal to his spirit as the germ of Asiatic cholera was to the flesh of the inhabitants of the fated cities of the period, the terrible glamour of parricide, a crime which struck at the very root of the patriarchal order of his time, which Dad yet committed, as it were, in absentia, as if even the consciousness of his actions were denied to him. I submit, therefore, that Dad, rather than an afflicted poetic genius, contrived in some measure, in spite of, or perhaps because of his absolute seclusion from it, to capture the essential spirit of his age. For, you creatures of the dream yourselves, could one of you deny that Dad was himself, in person, the dream's revenge? Thank you.
In Come Unto These Yellow Sands by Angela Carter, the narrator was Fiona Shaw. Richard's dad was played by James Anthony Rose, Sir Thomas Phillips, Pip Torrens, Frith, Keith Hill, Oberon, Robert Pugh, Titania, Monica Dolan, Park, Tom Forrester, Shopkeeper and Fairy Fella, Noof McEwen, Landlady, Tilly Vosborough, Crazy Jane, Jasmine Jones, Doctor, Nicholas Murchie. The director was Robin Brooks. In An Evening with Angela Carter was played by Fiona Shaw. It was produced by Fiona McAlpine and was an Allegra production for BBC Radio 3.
And there'll be more stories by Angela Carter over on BBC Radio 4 all this week, starting with The Bloody Chamber. That's tomorrow morning at 10:45.
I have a story for you. Wanna hear it?
Follow me.
Drama on 3.
What is the point of thinking everything if you can't say it all out loud?
New short works recorded at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe.
We all live in our own self-made version of reality. I'm trying to choose interesting sounds to show how much we filter and what we lose.
Drama on 3 at Summerhall.
I refuse to go to a dodgy sound effects party. It's like a bad busman's holiday.
Beginning with the first 3 performances.
That happened to me. What happened to that girl?
Available now on BBC iPlayer Radio.
Well, we might think that summer concerts equals BBC proms and queuing for returns at the Royal Albert Hall. But, shock horror, other summer music festivals are also available. And tonight we visit 2 of them in the company of Kate Mollison.
Good evening. Unrequited Love, The Shadow of Genius, and a couple of Shakespeare connections are coming up tonight. The opiated visions of Berlioz and his Symphonie Fantastique later. First, though, music by a composer who loomed large in Berlioz's inspiration, sometimes a little too large when it sent him into rampages of self-doubt. But we'll come to those. Beethoven wrote his Coriolan Overture for a play by a chap called Heinrich Joseph von Collin. No, me neither. Coriolanus being a Roman aristocrat who was banished for neglecting the starving populace. Coriolanus plots revenge and gathers his troops to punish Rome. It's only when his mother and sister plead with him that he finally realises that brutality is not the route to true honour. Beethoven gets to the heart of all the heroism and the tragedy and ultimately the lyrical humanity. We're in Spain for this performance. Miguel Ángel Gómez Martínez conducting the RTV Symphony Orchestra. This is a concert given at the Santander Music Festival just last month.